So the old theory of concussion, it was called the coup contrecoup injury. So the theory for how a concussion injury happened would be the brain hit the inside of the skull and bounce back and hit the back part of the inside of the skull. So you'd have the injury on the front part called the coup. Brain hits the skull, bounces back, and then it hits the other part of the skull, and that's the contrecoup injury. And if you Google concussion, you'll still see this mechanism described as the coup contrecoup injury. And what you'll see is a picture of a bruise. And the bruising is on the outer part of the brain. And so concussion was often described as this bruising of the brain. Now, the new theory around how concussion happens is actually a stretch or shear theory. So the brain now, the way that we think about it is the brain, if you consider the brain to be kind of like jello, and as the brain gets impacted, it'll shake. And if you picture jello shaking back and forth, if I'm to zoom in on every little jello strand within a pile of jello, you're going to see those strands get stretched out. So that's the theory now behind concussion, is it's not so much a bruise to the outer part of the brain, but it's when the brain gets stretched and jiggles back and forth, you get stretching of those brain cells, which then causes what's called an ion exchange. When the brain cells get stretched out to a significant enough degree, there's little pores in the membrane of each brain cell. And those little pores, when they get stretched open, there's little ions inside the brain cell and there's little ions on the outside of the brain cell, and those ions exchange with one another. That little exchange causes excitation of the impacted brain cells. So really what you have is the impact, which then jiggles the brain. The jiggling of the brain stretches the brain cells out, and as soon as they get stretched out to a significant enough degree, the stuff that's inside goes out and the stuff that's outside comes in, and that creates stimulation, and then the brain starts undergoing what's called action potentials, where it starts to fire. This might cause some people to go unconscious. This might cause you to see stars, right? You're not seeing stars. You're seeing random discharge of ions transmitting and axons firing in your visual cortex that makes you see stars. You might be off balance. You might be a little bit dazed and out of it. But that's kind of what happens in concussion. It's this electrical storm that happens inside the brain.